perhaps how you were able to use Matterport and Zuant for the off-site people to be able to experience the on-site.
Yep. So basically, one of the pieces of our symposium was going to be a tour of the new Gigafactory. So basically what we did with Matterport and Zuant was Matterport came and did a 3D scan of our factory and all of the points of the factory that were going to be tour stops in person. So basically that those people that were able to see it online were seeing the same stops and seeing the same information that everybody on site was seeing. So you would stop at the front entrance of the building and it would pop up like a hello or a video of our GM, Dan O'Connell, welcoming you to the Gigafactory, same as he did in the tour. And then we went around the facility and took scans of all of the, I think it was 7 stops. And the 3D version allowed us to pop up a video where we had expert matter or subject matter experts speaking about what's happening in each of those spots. So truly that global community was getting everything a person was getting on a tour in real time.
And so at the big picture, how many people were able to view the Plug Power experience off-site?
Thousands. I don't know the exact number at this moment, but people who logged in to watch the symposium was close to 5,000, I think. That being said, once it ended, people were still watching the tour, watching the 3D tour. As Pete would say, he just told me recently that there's still people watching that tour and I didn't even know it. So it's great.
Still in there.
Yeah. So it's almost countless at this point, Dan, because you know where it started at that symposium live, thousands, and then it's there.
Now, I imagine in a factory that's related to some new innovative technology, you don't necessarily want people to see everything that's in the factory. So how was Zuant 3D plus Matterport able to help with that challenge of we want people to see the factory, but we don't want people to see everything in the factory, because with Matterport, you do see everything.
Absolutely. It was a very simple conversation. Once they did the scan of each stop, we would go through the scan and we would say, okay, this is a piece of IP. Can you blur it out? And it was as simple as that. And it when you're watching the scan or the video, you would never know that anything was, it never looked as if it was blurred. I mean, it was very professionally done, where it was just simply a piece of the view that you didn't get too much detail in.
And I imagine also that with Zuant, they were able to make it so that you would perhaps jump from the reception right to the spot in the tour and skipping some things that you didn't want to show.
Absolutely. Yes. There's a lot of hallways. There's a lot of, side rooms, labs and things like that. So yes, we did take the opportunity to sort of jump from station, spot 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 through 7 and kind of keep it clean.
Okay, I'm going to ask Pete to do a demo of that a little bit later, but I still want to stay with the big picture. Before we move on to kind of the lead generation piece of it, was there anything else in terms of the visual experience of doing this online with Matterport plus Zuant 3D? I heard you at least talk about some annotation. So in my mind, I think of, oh, here's a video of Daniel O'Connell, your CEO. Oh, here's some subject matter experts. They're on video telling the same story that perhaps they would have told to the 200 plus that were in person.
Yes.
Were there other things like that within the Matterport tour enhanced by Zuant 3D that you recall?
Absolutely. To be honest, there was probably so much that we could have used that we didn't because of the quick turnaround. When we do further, different scans, I'm excited to see what else we could have done. But yes, I think it was so easy to work with them. The idea that you can have a scan of an entire 360 space. A lot of the things that we were showing in this tour were brand new machines building, stacks and things like that, all of the parts and pieces to our fuel cells. and for a video to be able to pop up and somebody explain what that machine is doing, or data sheets, you can load any kind of data, PDFs, Word, anything you want, you can add in there so that people get the true information you want. It's sort of at your fingertips how much or how little you want to allow people to see.
Mhm. In this new world of hybrid, where you're both doing an in-person and an online experience, it seems like in this case, where perhaps in the past you might have had a special event experience, that would have been it. But I think what I'm hearing is you would have been limited to 200 people as opposed to the thousands that actually have now participated
Absolutely.
virtually in the Matterport plus 3D plus Zuant 3D experience. Were you able to learn things from perhaps some of the analytics of Zuant about where people spent their time, or what? Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. So that was the key. The analytics are key, right? When you try to understand what people are interested in. And Plug, even though we've been around for 25 years, we're still very entrepreneurial. We're always trying to think of what's new and exciting and what people need, right? So to be able to see where a person went in this 3D tour, where they spent most of their time, did they click on all videos, or did they just click on a video focused on the production of a stack or an MEA panel? It really gives you an understanding of what people are interested in. That being said, it also shows you what countries people are watching from, or looking at different things, what they're interested in. In Europe, green hydrogen is a huge conversation right now, so it's interesting to see somebody visited this tour from anywhere really, and what they focused on, whether they went through all 7 stops or they wanted to really focus on one particular thing we were doing.
And either what did you find or what surprised you when you had access to the analytics that's provided by Zuant 3D of a Matterport space?
Again, it's the understanding what people are interested in. There's such an interest in electrolyzers, our PEM electrolyzers. And I think that says a lot about the hydrogen conversation. It has only become a big deal in the past few years, where people have actually thought, wow, hydrogen really could be a thing. And now green hydrogen is a thing. And to see it through this Matterport Zuant 3D tour, to see that people really want to engage on how we're going to do that, says a lot to us about, we're doing the right thing. It shows people that we're actively doing it. It's one thing to say something, but this is a transparency to show people that Plug is actually producing.
Tracy, were you surprised at how much time was spent within the Matterport tour? How much time was spent at the different stations?
I wouldn't say I was surprised. I was delighted, because when we did it, I thought, oh, this is it. This is what people need to see. Because again, what I said about, it's one thing to talk about something, but the action needs to follow. I was so excited to see that people were viewing and seeing that we were actually doing something with hydrogen. And so surprised and excited, probably the same. And like I said before, there's no going back. I mean, there's no way you can't use this kind of software and this kind of production to get sort of this information across to the masses.
I would imagine that you could have used just Matterport and people could have viewed a Matterport tour, but you would not have had any of this analytics. How important was it that after you were surprised or maybe not surprised, but delighted about how much time how important was it to actually have that feedback that, oh, we had thousands of people tour this space and spent a lot of time at the different stations and watched all these videos of subject matter experts talking about how important was the analytics of being able to know time spent, where was it spent, where were people from?
It's key. It's everything. And what's funny is when I reached out to Zuant and we started talking about the 3D tour, the initial demand was just to show people this tour, right? Well, we have people in person that we need that are going to see things. We need these people to see things too. And then the fact that those analytics are behind it was a pleasant surprise. So then it's something that Plug has never had. It's something that Plug has never had the opportunity to follow, right? And I know that the conversation isn't about the lead generation app that they have as well, but that too is what we're seeing is at trade shows, at corporate events, we're getting these analytics that we never had before. So now we have new people on our marketing team that are, solely focused on really understanding these analytics and working campaigns and things like that to make sure people get the information they're looking for. And the only reason we know what they're looking for is because of these analytics.
Let's talk about the lead generation. So this other category of when your guests virtually entered the Matterport space, did they need to register through a Zuant provided registration screen?
They did. I was not I did not work on that piece, but they did, and it was in collaboration with whatever the hosting platform was for registering for the symposium as a whole.
Oh, okay.
So they worked together.
Yeah, Pete, was that the case? It was that the guests registered by filling out a Zuant form in order to enter the Matterport space?
They could do it that way, but also working with the webinar platform, we can just pull the registrations through to save them the trouble of having to do that, so we know who they are when they go into the space.
So you could do it either way.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
okay.
of course, the people using the space now on a daily basis, that they register on the Zuant form as they go.
They register. Okay, so in essence, there's two ways to enter a Matterport space of Plug Power. One is you already know who they are, so you've granted them access. And then second, for those that you may not have necessarily invited, but have the opportunity to view the tour, they can register to enter the front door, essentially, of Plug Power.
That's right.
At the high level, Tracy, can you talk a little bit about the lead generation as a result of this open house, this special invitation?
For the symposium, you mean?
For the symposium,
yeah. So yeah, it's again, thousands of opportunities to see who visited. What you see on the back end from Zuant is who the person was, all of their registered information. You can see what they looked at, how many times they looked at it, if they went back to something. So again, new people on our marketing team go through those analytics to understand what a person is doing when they visit it, and then continue to monitor sort of campaigns based on that.
Okay, so I'm somewhat naive. I don't fully understand all this. So how important is it to your sales team when following up with someone who has visited the symposium to know exactly what they looked at within the Matterport tour and how much time they spent and which videos they looked at? How important was that?
So we're all consumers, right? So imagine you go into a store and somebody comes up and wants to sell you this piece of equipment over here, but you have zero interest in that. You came into the store to get a baseball bat, whatever the case is. It's the same thing with our sales teams, right? They can go to this person and they can not waste this person's time or their own time talking about a broad picture or a hypothetical or things like that. They can immediately dive into what they think this person wants. Nobody wants their time wasted. Nobody wants to be sold something that they don't need. So it really helps for a conversation to be streamlined, to simply say, we saw that you were here. We saw that you visited this spot several times. What else can I tell you about that? What kind of information would you like to hear? What kind of additional stuff can I send you?
As a global events manager, before today's conversation, before Zuant, and you were doing events, were you essentially collecting the equivalent of a business card, and you had so are we talking about the difference of night and day? We went from the information on a business card to actually how much time did they spend, where did they spend it, what did they look at, which videos did they look at? That person is interested in inside a factory and using a forklift and the conversion of a existing technology to a green hydrogen technology for warehouses. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think of the 250 people that were there on site, we don't have these analytics for them. We know that they went on this tour. We know that they stopped at all 7 spots. We don't know if it interested them or not, unless you had the feedback from them. So without question, the analytics here are invaluable. It's something we would never get from an in-person only event.
So when you interact with perhaps sales and marketing, you are the global events manager, and in a company of 3,000 employees, I would imagine there's a lot of people that have a focus on sales, a focus on marketing. When you came back to them and said, here's the data analytics and the lead generation that we have, and the information behind the leads, what kind of reactions did you get from your team?
They love it. It's just an added tool for them. It's a more efficient way for them to work. And in just as in we get valuable leads, you're also able to see what's not valuable necessarily, right? It's always great to have people visit. It's always great to know that people are interested. There's no question that there's competitors that are looking. There's no question that there's college age kids, in university looking, which is wonderful, but certainly not somebody our sales team is going to reach out to. So in those instances, it streamlines for the sales team who the focus is, who the mature conversations are, who you sent us to sourcing, right? A lot of the time suppliers will, trying to sell us something, will log in, and that's wonderful. And we know to put them over on the sourcing side of things as opposed to sales.
Did it also help the sales team prioritize? I imagine there's never enough salespeople to call the number of leads all on day one, or all on week one, or all in month one. So did the Zuant data analytics, lead generation, was that instrumental in helping the sales team prioritize?
Absolutely. We have every business unit that we have has a sales coordinator, and part of their many jobs is to gather leads from an event or this 3D tour, and sort of plan out who in their business unit gets the lead and who has to follow up and things like that. So it does help. And though we're not currently using it, Zuant does enable you to integrate directly into Salesforce. So the reason we're currently not using it is because we integrate first into a program called Pardot, which is a marketing tool. And then ultimately, you look like you know that, Dan. But
the founder is in my office, in my co-working space. So
well, there you go. They're a lovely group.
Yeah.
And yes, so we go through Pardot first, and then give it to our sales coordinators to sort of divide and conquer amongst the sales team. But any of that integration is helpful, whether it's integrating to Pardot or Salesforce is helpful because it's less manual work that we have to do. And again, back to the efficiency of it all.
Yeah. Pete, before I ask you to kind of give us a deep dive demo of the Plug Power plus Matterport plus Zuant 3D, at a top level, are there follow-up questions that you feel like you want to ask Tracy?
Well, Tracy, no, we're delighted to I mean, you two are doing the job for me at this stage, but I mean, you've had a taster of this at short notice, and it's delivered quite a lot more than I think any of us expected at the time. We just didn't know. You have to fly a kite sometimes and see what happens. So with that taste, where do you see this headed for the future? Do you see similar applications for other plants, or you were
Absolutely.
talking earlier about your hydrogen highway, are there other applications for digital twins that you can see in the future?
Absolutely. There's no question we will use it again. We are building green hydrogen production plants across the US, and we fully intend on doing at least one, if not multiple, tours of those facilities. We have some of our products, like our electrolyzer, PEM electrolyzer product, our stationary power units. These are very large 40-foot plus products that we absolutely are considering doing some sort of digital twin with, because those are things that you can't bring to somebody to show them, right? I mean, you could bring a person there, but we much more prefer to be able to bring a visual to people of what these very large scale products look like.
Very cool. So do you ever see a time at a trade show where you would just, instead of building a booth, you would build a theater and have a 3D tour, so that
I
you
would
could
love
hop
that.
from plant to plant? You know, any thoughts like that yet?
I think that could be integrated for sure. I think in the trade show world, there certainly needs to be an element of real product. You know, that's what people are looking for. But there absolutely is a world of combining it similarly to what we did for Symposium. You know, you have things happening in person as they should, but certainly an ability to bring other people, broadcast to other people, or broadcast into that shell from a plant, like you said.
I found it fascinating that you had 200 plus people come on site, yet the thousands of people who participated virtually, you know way more about what's of interest to them versus having collected their business card as they walked in the door, or their check them off that they had registered to attend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I think it's
fascinating.
an element that people in live events don't really, hadn't really considered until recently.
Yeah.
You know, you invite people, you know, the people you're inviting, it's a bit of a sort of a select group, but you still don't know.
So how important was it that you had thousands more participate than the 200 that could participate in person?
Yeah, that's what I said. I mean, you can never go back. I think we'll always have to have hybrid events, because it started from the year before when it was the end of COVID and we were still being cautious. And so we had a virtual event for the whole symposium, and then we did the hybrid. And it's one of those things where you can't go back. We have valued customers and partners in Europe and Asia, all around the world. And why not include them in what we're doing and make it easier for them?
Since you were offering a virtual experience, did you have any concern that that might reduce the in-person attendance?
Well, that was asked of us, but we were never really concerned, because the Gigafactory is a tremendous large scale place, right? And so we did know that it was something special for people to come see. We were pleasantly surprised that, we're happy that people did show up. Rochester, New York in October is always questionable simply by weather standards. So, but we did have a really great group in person. And we were confident because of what we were showing them, but absolutely pleased to show globally as well.
Okay.